Everyone. One of the advantages of a platform like RAI is the privilege to probably address a group of audience as with the wealth of talent and experience that all of you have. It's a true privilege for me to be here and to tell you a little bit about not just the journey of Indian retail, but also a little bit about what we do or what we're trying to do for retail in India. To start with, as all of you know, every journey begins with a footprint or a little step. Now, traditionally, India has always been a country of traders. For centuries, all of us are known to trade, and therefore retail took its first steps into India centuries back. How did they start? They started off with these small shops. These small shops across multiple locations, pretty much the restaurant philosophy holds for a retail also in India today. It's all about location. So you have these small armed dukandars, as we like to call them, who've been sitting out of areas for 50 years, 100 years, running it over generations. And pretty much what do they have going for them? They have three things. They know the location, they know the people in that location, they know the customer base. They probably have one of the most loyal customer bases compared to any other form of retail. That's a little bit to start with. But what are we here for? 2.5 decades back, modern retail took its first steps into India. All of you, I'm sure quite a bit of you, have been pioneers in the modern retail business. You've gone through the entire rigmarole of setting it up. You would have had legislation problems, you would have had conformity problems, you would have had adaptation problems, multiple things. I'm sure you all know the challenges better than me because you've been through that journey. But what happens with modern retail? How do we set up a modern retail store in India today? You invest millions of dollars in kitting out and leasing out spaces all over the country. You invest millions of dollars in stocks and supply chain. The paucity of talent in modern retail today is, a good English speaking, a good sales guy is probably one of the most scarce commodities in India. Every retail store in India, small, big, any form, the biggest cost today is not just acquisition, but retention of that talent. We invest millions of dollars in that.
Hello, check. Bharat, just a moment, please. Yeah. I'm here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you need to network, could you please move outside? Let's respect the next speaker and the effort they're putting in. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hugo. It's always nice to have somebody backing up a new kid on the block. So, where was I? Yeah, on modern retail. So when you set up a store, the day before you cut the ribbon, what have you done? You've invested all that money into real estate, which you don't know tomorrow if it's going to stay. You've invested a lot of money in acquisition, retention of talent to run those stores at the back end, at the front end. You've invested millions of dollars in the stock and supply chain. At the end of it all, after all this money is gone in, that's when you cut the ribbon. Once you cut the ribbon, the store moves, the store works. And then, just when you're on the horizon of profitability for that store, inflation, which is something which you don't factor, kicks in. The real estate is probably doubled. So then you have the toss-up whether you continue with that store or you move to another store. Migration, everybody knows. Millions of people are moving into the cities in India. The infrastructure is creaking. But that's the beauty of it. Unless we are not a suburbanized population like the West, we are urbanized, everybody wants to move to the urban centers. So if you need to do business, you need to be at the urban center. But to be there costs you. While some of us might have great arbitrage opportunities and we might save 50 cents on the dollar when we renew the store, we're also spending 75 cents on the dollar to retain the talent there. So end of the day, it's a vicious circle. Every day you hear about multiples of stores starting up, and I'm sure all of you at your various boardrooms are also considering multiples of stores which you probably want to shut down. And that's the problem with modern retail. I won't say it's a problem, but that's the problem which all of us face cost efficiency and optimization. Enter the new guy, the e-tailer, who you guys choose to call as the organized retailer. He doesn't have infrastructure costs. I'm sure he has a little bit of technology costs. He's got quite a bit of manpower retention costs. But what does this guy do? He saved money here, but he wants to get in and he wants to blow millions of dollars in both discounting, calls it customer acquisition, as well as marketing. So for him, the cycle is the same. When he stops discounting, he stops selling. So where's the fine balance? We at Just Buy Live had a fair idea on this. So we said, we're not modern retail, neither are we organized retail. So what are we? We said we have a chain of stores in this country, 20 million armed dukandars. They are our front-end stores. And therefore, while we're not modern retail or organized retail, we shall modernize and organize this retail. So we went to the next step and we said, how do we modernize and organize these retail? Infrastructure, not a problem for them. They've inherited those shops for generations. People, not a problem. I'm sure all of you know family and community. Both of them don't unionize and don't go on strike. The third thing is customer retention. While they have a diminishing customer base, I'm sure every modern retail guy here will tell you that even with your most loyal customer, the return is probably 25% at best per year. These guys might have lesser customers, but they come every single day to them because they have the local pulse. So what we chose to do is to modernize them and organize them by augmenting their supply chain and to provide to them. At this point of time, I'd like to tell you that Just Buy Live is, and let me be emphatic over here, we are not a B2C player. We are not interested in the B2C space. We are not here to steal any one of your customers. We don't want your customers. As far as we are concerned, we believe all of you here, whether you're the armed dukandar or the hyper retail or even the organized e-tail or retail as you call them, are our customers. All we want to do is to be a primary, secondary or augmented supply chain. We want to give you efficiencies. We know that you're suffering from your margins and to make the whole balance sheet work out. What we're trying to do is through disintermediating the supply chain and cutting the layers of distribution from when it comes from the brand till your stores. If we could somehow make that more efficient through technology, we shall reach out to you and do that. The idea is, while I might not be the answer to all your problems, I'm not a magician who's going to wave a wand, but I can definitely save some margin for you all, and therefore you can use that somewhere else. At this point, and I've been told by Hugo to keep this brief, we need to move to the next hall. So I'm quickly going to wrap up here. At this point, what I'd like to tell you is, let's think Amul. Let's think it's a cooperative. Some of us have 50 cattle. Some of us have 500 cattle. And some of us have 5,000 acres of land with millions of heads of cattle on. But all of us are here for the same thing. All of us are here to produce milk and therefore sell it. And as long as people are willing to drink milk and not import cold pressed juice, we have a market there. If all of us work together as a collective, there is a market for all of us. That if the collective wins, all of us win. At this point in time, since we're talking about footprint, I'd like all of you to just think about this. There's a sunset. It's a beautiful sunset. It's a nice, the light is perfect. The sands are soft. You're on a beach, whichever beach you prefer, and you're walking. When you're walking on that beach, you're leaving beautiful imprints on that sand. Think about it. It's a wonderful vision. But here's the truth. The sun is set. Darkness has fallen. The tides changed. And the water has started flowing again. So I want each and every one of you in this room to consider this. The next morning, when the sun rises, and this is not the Hollywood of fame, is your footprint still on that sands of time? And if not, what are you doing about it? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Bharat Balachandran from Just Buy Life. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Mr. Bharat Balachandran. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got some good news for you. Ladies and gentlemen, just to remind you, Flipkart is having a special session. That is your hour of business with Flipkart, starting right away at Jasmine. Okay, and now I've got two bits of news for you, good news and better news. The good news is we have a fabulous lunch lined up for you when we do open lunch, of course. The better news is we're going to give you a chance to work up an appetite by playing the game of musical chairs. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, because the train awards are being held here, we need to set up this venue. We're going to move our next session back to Ballroom 1. Okay, so we'll see you there on the other side of this panel in just 60 seconds. Thank you.
Gentlemen.